Welcome to Commander Central, episode 170. And with the new year upon us, it's time to get EDH Fit and talk about our New Year's Commander workout regimen to get into shape for the upcoming year. I'm Dana.
And I'm Max.
And I'm Ryan.
Ryan Greene. Welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Hey, Dana and Max, how's it going?
We're doing pretty well. This is the first show, the last show of 2019. I had to think about it for a second.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me, by the way.
You are welcome. We had your partner in crime, Zach, on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was a great episode. Anybody should go listen to it. I really enjoyed it. I was telling Zach, it's so fun to be able to experience content like that as a fan. I didn't have a hand in making any of it, and it's truly wonderful to see that. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, it is because Max, was it a month or two ago, Max, when you did the episode of Commander Ad Pop with Ryan Penniff? And, I don't think I've ever heard Max on a thing where I wasn't also there. So, number one, I talked too much. So Max wasn't fighting with me. And just hearing him talk with Ryan without me there was actually really cool to listen to. Just, Max's thoughts on something. I really enjoyed hearing him by himself.
I'm a man of many dimensions.
You are. You contain multitudes.
Yes.
So, Ryan, you might as well quick tell us, for those that don't know, where do people know your name? What are you most known for here in the world of Commander?
Yeah, I can do that. All right, so we have a weekly podcast called Commander Social, and I'm there with my partner in crime, Zach, and our silent partner, Mike, and we do more casual content for Commander, and it's a whole lot of fun, and you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, and we've gotten to know each other over the last year. We've hung out at a couple of GP Vegases now at this point, and because this show and your show all roughly kind of started at the same time, so we've been making content kind of in parallel and have gotten to know one another, and it's been a lot of fun kind of growing as a creator alongside you guys.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I love listening to y'all's stuff. I'm a fan. So it's really great to be here.
No, I feel the same way. I genuinely enjoy listening to the show that you guys put out, the show that Commander Cookout guys put out. As much crap as we give them, they do a great show too. There's this handful of podcasts that all started at the same time, and I really have enjoyed listening to you guys and being a fan, and also getting to know you, and kind of just seeing all of us kind of blossom together has been just an amazing experience.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, it's so cool to know people that you're a fan of, and get to interact and talk behind the scenes, and share tips and stuff. It's really wonderful.
It has been. And we just got an announcement from you guys too about the upcoming Magic Fest Austin and the Commander Social crew. What's going on there?
Oh yeah, you know what? I should definitely say that. So huge shout out to Channel Fireball. We are going to be guests at Magic Fest Austin, and it's January 10th through the 12th, and I'm super excited about it. So if anybody is going to be at Magic Fest Austin, please hit us up on Twitter at Commander Social, and we would love to get in some games with y'all. We're just super excited. It's happening in our hometown, and we're really looking forward to it.
Very, very exciting. So yeah, find these guys. I'm guessing you'll post roughly where you're at on Twitter or something so people can come track you down.
Oh yeah, very probably cool. Every day, probably every game.
Yeah, for sure. Because is this the first event you guys have been to since Vegas last year?
It is. Yes, it is.
Nice. Very cool. And we had talked about coming down. Max is coming down for GP's Zach's house in February, I believe. Is that right?
That is correct.
So Max will be in Austin, but not for the GP, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm totally going to hang out with you guys at Zach's place too. I'm really excited for that.
That will be a lot of fun too. We're looking forward to reports from the floor. Hopefully everyone stays safe and doesn't wind up imbibing too many beverages in Austin there.
No promises.
Max, looking at you. All right. I know it's Christmas week here. We're recording this right after the holidays, so that kind of interferes with everyone's game schedule. Has anyone played any fun games or had anything interesting happen in your world of Magic in the last week it's worth talking about? I will briefly mention mine. I was on a stream, 24-hour stream right before the Christmas holidays with MTG Lexicon. on Saturday night. I think they've got the stream posted to their YouTube channel now. I was on about the 10 o'clock p.m. mark, and I played a game and a half. I played with my Vela deck, and I started playing a game with Reki, and then I think around midnight, the server that was hosting the video and the audio component went down for maintenance. So the game died. Yeah, the game died midstream. And by the time everything came back up, we were on to the next window where there were some more people that were coming on. So I didn't get to finish the second game. But it was a lot of fun. And it's worth checking out MTG Lexicon in general. They do a really good stream. But that one should be up if you want to see me play a little bit of Commander with a full game on my Vela deck and about half a game with my Reki deck. It's out there on YouTube, on the MTG Lexicon channel.
Yeah, I can jump in and say that the MTG Lexicon guys are pretty cool. We actually got to meet Nick. He came to Austin once.
Oh, that's right.
And that was a really cool special experience. That was like earlier this year. I want to say in like the March timeframe, if my mind is remembering correctly. And yeah, we got to get some games in, and super cool dude. And yeah, I think it's great that, like, again, it's like you talked about, it's like all the content creator circles are like everybody knows each other, and it's so cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and a real great group of guys over there who put on, like, technically speaking, the setup they have for watching streaming Commander is as good as anything out there, if not better than anything out there. So totally check them out. But anyway, how about either of you two? Any fun things that have happened in the last week or two with Commander for you?
Nothing for me. I haven't played in a few weeks.
All right, so we'll fix that tomorrow night, Max. But what do you got, Ryan?
I played on the 19th, so about a week ago. Played up at the Mothership. So shout out to the Mothership, our local game store. And it was a pretty cool game. I played my Golos deck. Y'all are kind of familiar with it from the rotisserie.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed it since then, right? I'm running it stock. I did something that I didn't know the deck could do, which is I got Zakama. I used Eldamri's Call to get Zakama. And when you cast it, you get to untap all your lands. And I'd ramped enough to where I could capsize with buyback the Zakama.
Oh no!
So I managed to go infinite and just like activate Golos a whole bunch of times. And yeah, but I mean, it was pretty late in the game, so I didn't feel super bad. But I was like, oh, I didn't know my deck was capable of this.
Yeah, that had to feel pretty good. They're like all the power in the world right there with Zakama. Oof. Yeah, I think we played against that Golos deck at least once in Vegas. That's actually, I've been going through all of my games and kind of transferring them from my notebook onto a spreadsheet. And as I'm putting them down, I'm like, oh, that was this weekend. Like, oh, that was Ryan beating us up with that Golos deck. I distinctly recall coming across that game.
Yeah, I thought the deck would be like decently like hamstrung by the budget, but it's really not. It's just really not.
And I've played some really diverse Golos decks too. We have at least one Maze's End deck in the shop, but you don't have to build it that way at all. There's a lot of different directions you can take that deck.
Yeah, there certainly is. And actually, I've literally done the Maze's End thing once, and it was with that Golos deck. And it was because, we got to add whatever mana-fixing lands we wanted as part of the rotisserie. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just put all the gates in there and then just play a turn slower and get this alternate win. And yeah, I actually made it happen once, and I was like, oh, wow, that's super cool.
That's a great, story to tell victory. That's kind of the best way to win sometimes. Okay, well, if you want to reach out to us and say hi or tell us what any fun things that you did here at the end of 2019, how would you do that, Max?
You can find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching CMDR Central. We're also on YouTube, searching CMDR Central, and pretty much just Google CMDR Central, and you'll find us.
You can also find us on Flipside Gaming.
Yeah, use promo code CMDR in all caps to get 10% off all orders, $10 or more.
And I think we have a few new patrons to talk about here, Max.
We do. If you are so inclined to be able to support the show financially, head over to patreon.com/CMDR Central. Check out our reward tiers. One of the most popular ones is that Decks You Play episode we air every Thursday.
Yes, indeed.
But this week we want to say thank you to Matthew Watson and Brandon Hausman.
All right. Thank you both very much. And thanks to all our patron supporters. it's a big deal that people will support this show and keep the lights on and just allow us to keep making content a couple times a week. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
We have a couple of contests here that are wrapping up, I believe, as well. Don't we hear, Max?
Yeah, on Twitter, we're giving away 3 packs of War of the Spark because I found a bundle in my closet, so I figured let's crack that open. And for Patreon, we're giving away the rest of the bundle, the other 7 packs, to one lucky winner as well.
All right. So you'll retweet that, and anyone retweets, they get entered in the contest.
Correct.
Very good. I think that's about all the housekeeping we have going on. I will ask this. Have either of you two watched The Witcher yet?
I have not.
I've watched 1 episode.
Just one. How did you like it so far, Max?
It's really good.
I liked it quite. I told somebody this. I'm like, I do get a bit of a Xena Warrior Princess kind of vibe, a little bit from it. That's not a bad thing.
No, I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah. So it's like not really campy, but it's a little bit campy. But it's been a lot of fun. We actually, my wife and I binged through all 8 episodes. So I would recommend checking out. It was really good. And Ryan, have you managed to see Rise of Skywalker yet?
I did, actually. I went with Zach. Folks may know, Zach and I took a Twitter hiatus starting the day that it released.
You did, that's
and,
right.
And we were like, okay, can't do Twitter. It's gonna get spoiled. We gotta wait until. And we had tickets for Sunday, and we went and saw it. And then it was like, oh, we're back on Twitter. So
nice.
Have you seen it?
How did you like it? We did. We went. Was it the Thursday night it came out, Max?
Correct.
So we actually recorded a show at Max's place, and then like basically immediately after we wrapped up, I left and went and watched the movie.
Oh man, did you guys do like a midnight show?
10 p.m.
Yeah, it was. So, but by the time it started and it finished, and then I brought Max and brought Chris home. I think I got home at like 2. And that was a rough day of work the next day. I am too old to be going to work on 4.5 hours sleep.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. I'll take a Twitter hiatus any day over that.
Yeah. That was. I was feeling that.
But yeah, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
Well, good. All right. I enjoyed it too. Max liked it a little less than I did.
Yeah.
But it was entertaining.
Yes, it was entertaining.
So it was a good time. Okay. We've talked about Witcher. We've talked about Star Wars. It's time to talk about our EDH resolutions for the year and the exercises we're going to do to make ourselves better EDH players. Everybody always signs up for the gym first thing in the new year to get into shape. And this is going to be our version of that. We're going to each come up with 5 things we're going to do to work on our commander game.
So I just want to make sure this is clear. We're not actually exercising, are
We're
we?
not actually going to join a gym. Let's be serious.
Well, I was gonna say, like,
Okay.
the deck box could be pretty heavy. You could get like some 100 card
That's
curls
true.
going on.
My first year in Vegas, having like brought 10 deck boxes and having them all in my backpack all day long, you can absolutely get a workout lugging around commander decks for sure. I think actually that was because I think you guys did a show fairly early on where you talked about what to do for a GP. I think it might have been the show that Dan Krause was on.
It was indeed, yes.
And I remember one of the things Dan said was like, don't bring all your decks onto the floor. And I was like, man, you could have told me that 3 weeks ago. Because I think it was right after the first Vegas one where I had all my decks on me for the 3 days or 4 days. And luckily I didn't rupture a disc. Okay, so I will go first here. The first thing I want to work on this year is I want to be more conscious of my deck's individual play styles. And it's one thing to know your decks play differently, but I think it's a different thing to actually consciously execute on those differences. It's really easy to, hey, this deck is aggro and this deck plays much more slow and control, and then not really think about that until it's turn 8 and you realize you've just been kind of playing that the aggro deck the same way you play the control deck or vice versa, because you're BSing with friends and there's a lot going on, and that's an easy thing at least for me to do. So I want to be really conscious of making sure, number one, I understand how my decks play different from one another, and secondly, make sure I actually execute on that by reminding myself before I play the deck. and then following through on, okay, this one plays different than the previous deck. I just got done playing an aggro deck for an hour, and I need to shift gears and make sure I then do that. So I think one of the things I'm going to try to do for this is basically write like a little cheat sheet in each of my decks and put it in the deck box with just a couple bullet points on it that say, play this deck a little bit slower or play this deck a little bit faster. Keep an eye on this or that. So just have a few notes for each of my deck that I would remind myself every time I pull the deck box out, and then try to adapt accordingly.
I think there's another unintended benefit there, which makes this a really cool idea, which is whenever you lend a deck out to somebody, they could take a quick look at that cheat sheet and like have an idea of what to do. Because I know that sometimes I borrow a deck from somebody and I'm like, oh, I'm not exactly sure what to do. And having this little cheat sheet would be pretty nice.
That's a really good point. I didn't really think of that, but that's actually a fantastic point about that. Yeah, absolutely. Because I do the same thing. I have plenty of times I've lent decks out to friends, and when it's Max, he might have a little bit better idea because he's played against my decks most of the time. But if it's somebody who's like you, for example, if we're at something and you want to borrow a deck, Ryan, you might not know as intimately as Max does how my decks necessarily play out, and that would be a very good thing to have. So that's a great point. So I'll throw it to you next, Ryan. What's your first exercise here you want to do?
Okay, so I kind of tackled this assignment as like a whole workout regimen. So, when you go to the gym, you got to do a warm up first. You got to do your stretches. You got to get yourself ready to actually do the workout. And so I thought, maybe rather than just like playing, reading more articles and listening to podcasts and consuming other, material might be like a good warm-up thing. And it's something I do and really like appreciate. And in the month of November, I did a whole bunch more of it than I normally do. And I've kind of fallen off the train, especially with all the holiday stuff going on. So I really like in the new year, I want to get back on it. I want to make sure I'm getting caught up on all my podcasts and maybe even reading some more articles. Just kind of keeping myself aware of like what's going on, because like I've missed a whole bunch of like Theros spoilers, right? Like they've released some stuff and
Sure.
I'm like behind on those. I did see they reprinted Grey Merchant of Asphodel and I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty crazy. So it's stuff like that I want to like keep, aware of.
No, absolutely. That makes complete sense. Especially, it's really easy to kind of get in a bubble, so to speak, particularly in your meta when like you see, Zach, for example, play his decks and you see what cards he plays, and most people tend to have some patterns in terms of what cards they prefer and what cards they like, and it's easy to just see those same cards all the time. When you get outside of that and listen to a podcast that you don't usually listen to and read an article from somebody who doesn't play in your meta, a lot of times you can get a fresh perspective on cards and kind of see them from a different light and from a different angle that you're not going to get just going to your shop and playing games in the same meta with the same group of people, roughly.
Yeah, no, that's a seriously good point, because I play with a lot of the same people over and over again, but like when I go to the shop, it is a lot of newer people. Like our shop is big on Commander Night. Yeah. It's like 40 people plus. It's a lot.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. I'm super happy. But yeah, so it's like, I need to know like what the good decks are, right? Like, oh, is Greven out there? Is that what's being played? Like, how does that deck work? And if you listen to a podcast, and I think y'all's decks you play episodes are really good for this, right? Because these are decks that people are playing that aren't in your meta.
Right. Yes. Yeah. All right, Max, what's your number one here?
My first one is I kind of labeled it broadly as playstyle changes. A lot of my decks are all about commander damage. Getting through my commander and winning that way. Mm-hmm. And in 2020, I want to start playing different archetypes, whether it's like combo deck or colors I don't typically play. I realized every one of my decks has white in it, and I want to try playing color combinations that I'm not familiar with to maybe broaden my experience with the entire color pie.
Okay. That makes sense. When you talk about playstyle changes, Max, one thing I think of with you, and you've done this to me a couple different times, there's been situations where I've seen you kind of slow roll out your creatures, and I'm like, Max should have played a creature by now, and he hasn't. And he's in white, and I'm like, I feel like he's got a board wipe in hand, and he's like waiting for us to overextend. And then you've done that. You've board wiped, 2 turns later. But then I've caught you not board wiping. You just hold back and and kind of have bluffed me into thinking you're going to do that, and then all of a sudden you just lay 3 creatures and start swinging. After I've built myself, I've then held back and not done things, and so tweaking that playstyle change after catching me a couple times with that board wipe and then just not doing it absolutely has worked against me.
Yes.
So things like that I think are really, really useful, and that's an example I can think of where you just altering that play style a little bit has completely thrown me off. And then once you kind of have bluffed me, then I don't know what to look for. Then
it sounds like the Vicini gambit.
Yeah, right. So no, I know what you're saying about archetypes too. That completely makes sense. But in terms of playstyle changes, that makes a big difference too. If you can just throw that kind of slight tweak in there to what you usually do, it can completely throw people off and be really effective as well. So those are all really good ideas.
Well, thank you.
So my number 2 here, and something I need to work on, is I want to work on thinking through decisions before I act. And what I mean there is it's easy to see a threat and then respond to that threat, but it's much harder to see what other dominoes might fall as a result of me responding to that threat. And for example, if somebody O-rings your Grave Titan, that's no fun to lose your Grave Titan, right? And if you're holding a Naturalize in hand, I understand the instinctive desire to remove that O-ring and get your Grave Titan back. But sometimes you have to look around and be like, okay, well, getting my Grave Titan back would be really, really useful, but this is my only enchantment removal spell, and I'm really scared that guy is going to play a Mari's Wake next turn, or a Doubling Season in the token deck, or something that absolutely is going to be backbreaking. And sometimes it's instinctive. I want to just remove the O-ring and get my Grave Titan back, and I don't really think through those next steps. If I do that, it's going to leave me defenseless when that Mari's Wake comes down, and I can survive without having a Grave Titan. I can't survive that Mari's Wake. So that's something I want to work on a little bit, is thinking about the long-term consequences of me doing a thing versus the short-term consequences.
So are you kind of saying thinking about okay, well, if I do naturalize the O-ring and I get the Grave Titan back, is that going to lead me to a winning game position? Kind of trying to follow it through the next 3 turns. Is that Grave Titan going to help me build an advantage that's going to see me through? That kind of thing?
Right. Well, yeah, that would be an example of it. If I get it back, then what do I do with it? Of course, getting your Grave Titan is back. But am I going to win with that? Or does the person across the table from me have 6 Thopters anyway, so I'm not going to get through with any damage? And what is that actually going to accomplish? That's the next step you have to think about. If I get the Grave Titan back in the first place, what is it going to do versus just, I want to get my Grave Titan back?
I think this is good advice. It's very hard. It's very hard to do.
It's super, super hard because there's so many variables. And it is a lot of, at least for me, it's just a knee-jerk, I want my Grave Titan back, and you've taken it from me, and I have a chance to get it back, so I'm going to do that. It's much harder to stop and say, okay, but if I get it back, what does that really mean? So that's something I want to consciously make an attempt to mentally at least try to think through that decision tree and see where it all goes. Back to you, Ryan. What's your number 2?
All right. Okay. So I kind of alluded to this a little bit when I was talking about not keeping up with Theros, which is keep up with the Magic set releases. As a content creator, you kind of do this, but even still, I think one of the biggest things is not really understanding how a card works the first time you read it, which, I'm a veteran, I've been playing for a long time, but this still happens to me. And so if I keep up with the Magic set releases as they're happening and I read all the cards, this is going to help me with memory. It's going to help me when I see them sitting across from me, because let's be honest, when new cards come out, you're more likely to play against those right? Because it's the flavor of the month, and it's what people, it's the new hotness. It's what people want.
Right.
But it also will help you just getting that practice in of being able to read a card and understand it, because I can tell you that I read like finale of Devastation. I think that's the green one. And I was like, oh, does it get back like from the graveyard and from your library? Like, can it do both? But it's not. It's one or the other. And it's like, it's that kind of thing where the more cards you read and the more you practice it, the better it's going to serve you like during an actual game, because you're going to be able to like pick up an opponent's card, read it, and go, oh, I totally understand it right now. I don't have to like read it 4 times. So that's just something that like, a lot of times like you'll like, oh, I'm going to skip all the commons because that's really mostly for limited play. But even then, I really think you should take the time. And it's something I needed to get better at doing.
I think a good example of this that I definitely screwed up was way back in, I think, was it Kaladesh? Is that where Heroic Intervention is from?
Aether Revolt, but yeah, that block.
Aether Revolt. When that card came out, I totally skipped over it. Because we had a string there where green routinely got like an uncommon or something that, for 1 mana or 1 in a colorless, give target creature hexproof till end of turn and +1/+1 or whatever it was. And they were kind of, for the most part, like cards you use in limited or draft or something. And I see Heroic Intervention and it's like, target creature, hexproof, and okay, indestructible, whatever. And just kind of skip past it, because I just assumed it was that set's a version of that green draft chaff, protect your creature for 1 turn kind of card. It's not. It's an amazing card that I want to jam in every green deck, but I didn't realize that for like 2 months until I actually paid attention to the card and read it closer. I just kind of blew past it. Had I, slowed down a little bit and read the card all the way through and been like, oh, all my stuff gets hexproof and indestructible till end of turn, that just shuts off basically any board wipe that isn't Cyclonic Rift. It's an amazing card, and I didn't realize it because I was just sloppy and kind of Blu-ray past it with my eyeballs.
There's another good point here, when I'm not a finance guy, so don't take all this with a grain of salt. But like, I think that card was pretty cheap when it came out, and now it's like $9 or $10. And like, if you had read it and like got it, you've been like, oh, that's really good. I should pick up a couple of those while they're cheap.
Right. I want to buy 5 of those right now when they're 40 cents or whatever it was, and save myself a whole lot of money versus now when I want to pick one up for a deck and I'm like, ugh, do I want to spend $10 on a Heroic Intervention? So, were you going to say something about that, Max?
I was. I did something similar. God Eternal Ronus, I always assume has trample, or gives your stuff trample, but no, it gives it vigilance. Like, it gets me every time.
Yeah, that stuff is really easy to miss if you aren't really cautious and careful. So that's a real good point there, Ryan. Max, what's your number 2 here?
My number 2 is kind of in line with what Ryan was just talking about, and it's don't be afraid to try new cards. We do our set review shows, and when new cards come out, we say, yeah, we might try this in our deck, or, why we won't try a card, but sometimes I think I'm too critical of what I'm going to put into my decks, not just because maybe they don't fit a theme, but just because, oh, this card is just always good when I play it. And I think I give new cards the short sight of it and just be like, well, you're never going to live up to the card I would cut for you anyways.
Okay. Yeah, I see that completely, especially because we've been playing Commander for so long, all of us, and our decks have been, tweaked over the course of years and years and years. It gets tough to find slots, and it's easier just to be like, the card's not quite good enough. So no, I feel that as well. You sometimes have to kind of force yourself to like take those chances.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 3 one is kind of being patient, and it's giving other people a chance to solve a problem. And number 1, it's easy to jump the gun when player 1 goes to cast a spell. You as player 3 sometimes just jump in and counterspell it, and number 1, that's not correct. You're supposed to give everyone a chance and priority, but just from a smart gameplay perspective, you want to not use your counterspell if someone else is going to use it. Like, let somebody else do the work if they're willing to do it. So number 1, don't jump the queue if you don't have to. But number 2, there are some situations where like a problem creature comes down or a problem thing happens that you want to have gone, but maybe it doesn't matter if it's gone just yet. Like if, the giant creature comes down that's 32 and you don't want it hitting you, if you have an instant speed removal spell, maybe you can afford to wait and give someone else a chance to deal with it, or give it a chance to kill somebody else before you deal with it.
That was exactly the point I was going to make, is that like, if it's not against you, it's for you.
Yeah, definitely. And it can be tough to be patient to not pull that trigger. I think this is maybe a little bit in time with number 2, where I talked about thinking things through before acting. There's definitely a sequence of events that occurs there where you're like, well, if I don't act, what does this do? Maybe it gets somebody else killed, and that's great. But I think an element of that is you're letting somebody else sometimes solve a problem that's a problem for you, but you can afford to give someone else a chance to solve it. So the best way to have a problem go away is to have somebody else spend the mana and the card to make it go away. And if you don't give them a chance to do that, it's not going to happen. So I want to work at being a little bit more patient when it comes to solving problems and not solve them until they have to get solved.
Yeah, the best removal is the stuff in other people's hands. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly. Not wasting your resources all the time means you're better set up for the end game to have resources when your opponents may not.
Yep. All right, Ryan, what is your number 3?
Okay, my number 3 is a little bit out there, but hear me out. Okay, so I think the exercise I want to do in the new year is play more limited. Okay, and I know that sounds weird because we're on an EDH podcast, but I think the example that I think of from like pop culture is that like football players can gain like mental and physical edges by doing ballet, right? And I actually like did look that up, and it's a real thing. And I think that if you play more limited, you're going to develop some really awesome skills that apply to Commander. Number 1, problem solving. When you're playing limited, it's every turn is like a puzzle, right? And so if you get good at doing those puzzles and trying to figure out how to, and it's a lot of times with cards that you don't see very often, that's going to prepare you for people that are playing like non-standard cards, right? And it's got like these new and novel board states. And another thing that happens in limited games all the time is that like you kind of get to this like parity state where the ground is like gummed up and you're kind of at a stalemate. And that happens in EDH all the time, especially because it's a 4-player game. And you're like, oh, well, this person's open, but if I do that, then I'm open to the crackback from players, B and C. So the stalemates just happen easier in Commander. And you can get better at like figuring out like how that's going to flow if you play a little bit more limited. And so the example that I'm thinking of is I played a ton of War of the Spark Limited, right? I played it on Arena, and I like pretty much like opened like a playset of all the stuff. Like I played it a lot, and I feel like I was playing better Commander during that time as well. And so I think really like, and I think that's the other thing is that I know some people that aren't particularly fond of limited, but I think it really does like make you a better overall around player. But what do you guys think?
The thing I like about limited, and I like this about playing pre-con Commander decks and playing with Pauper or like budget Commander too, is it allows you to use, or forces you to use and see cards that you wouldn't normally otherwise see. And it's tough to run that white removal spell or something in your white deck in Commander when you have a Swords to Plowshares already and have that Path to Exile and have that Generous Gift. But if you don't have access to those, it kind of forces you to try something else, and maybe you'll find that spell that works really, really well that normally you wouldn't have even attempted to use in the first place. So because you had to run it because of budget, or you saw it in that limited environment, you then see the power level of that thing, and it really kind of can be eye-opening in a way that you maybe don't get an opportunity to even experience in Commander, because the card pool is so tight by virtue of you get every powerful card ever.
Yeah, and so maybe you end up getting like, so you start playing some non-standard cards that you found out.
Yeah.
And like those are kind of like like unknowns for your opponents, and that kind of trips them up. I like that idea. I like a lot.
Yeah. How about you, Max? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think I played Arena for a little bit when it first came out, and I mainly played Limited just because It's easier doing that than going to an FNM or something. I don't know if playing limited helped me be a better commander player, but I think it was just the fact I was getting reps of Magic in.
Sure, yeah.
It doesn't matter the format. That's what I think really helped me. It just kept my mind rolling with playing the game versus, not playing Commander for a couple weeks straight because of, life, and then going back to the shop and kind of forgetting
or
how to play the
Borderlands
game.
3.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it's fine.
But you can fire up Arena, on demand and do some limited, and just the fact that it's getting you reps alone is probably worthwhile.
Another thing about this,
Max.
hold on, I want to jump in. Sorry. So another thing about this is that limited also really helps you play to your outs a lot. Like, this is something I've done.
Oh yeah.
And you have to come up with a plan. You're like, oh no, I'm playing against that mill deck. How am I going to pull myself out of this situation? And so a lot of times that skill applies to Commander as well, which is okay, I have exactly 2 board wipes in my deck, and if I can find one of them, that's my way out of this game. Or maybe I'll draw that Storm Herd and make a whole bunch of chump blockers and get an air offensive too. So I think there is some validity about that piece as well. And it's, apologies because I didn't have that in the show notes, but I just thought about it while we were talking, and I think it's worthwhile.
No, for sure. Yeah. It's an exercise of a lot of skills that are really useful in Commander, and you can distill those skills down and exercise them way more frequently than you could in an actual game of Commander. Like in Commander, how many times are you going to encounter those kind of skill checks versus limited, where you're going to encounter them really, really frequently?
And I guess if we're comparing this to the workout regimen, this is don't skip leg day, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. All right, Max, what is your number 3 here?
Be okay with losing. So you're not going to win every game of Commander. I'm never going to win every game of Commander I play. Chris has comments on that. But if you're okay with losing, then you have the ability to look back and be well, did I miss something obvious? Did I block with the wrong creature and I probably should have redone that combat step? Would that saved me and won me the game? Or was I just out of outs? Was I down to 10 cards in my library and my win cons were milled away or something? But be able to look back at the game you played and, whether you're upset or salty or it was just a great game and you lost because, someone just beat you to it, at least analyze it and try to see if there's something you could have done better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that it's way tougher to look back and evaluate things when you're seeing red than it is when you're okay with having lost that game and you're clear-headed and you can look back and through clear eyes and in a calm mind and be like, okay, here's where I screwed up, versus just being mad. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, Ryan?
I was just going to say a point here that Max has in the show notes, which is learning more from losing than winning is absolutely true, right? A lot of times people maybe win a game and they don't necessarily even know why they won, and they don't go back and think about oh, did I almost lose here or did I almost lose here? And so one of the ways to get better is to analyze your losses, and that's a hard thing to do, but you should, right? And I think there's a tremendous amount of benefit to be gained there, and I think I would love to be able to go back and watch a recording of myself playing Commander and go, oh, there was a point where if I'd sequenced my cards differently, I could have won the game, and it's a really tough skill, but I think it's absolutely worthwhile to develop.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a tricky thing because it's a bit of an ego check. You have to admit you screwed up. And you have to be open-minded enough to admit you screwed up, and that can be challenging for me. It can be challenging for a lot of people, I think.
Oh yeah, I screw up all the time, and I'm okay with it. I think that's actually one of the best ways to live life, right? Because if you can do that, if you can check that ego and you can look back, that's where the gains are, right? That's how you're going to get better.
You bet. All right, we'll move to my number 4 here. My number 4 is find a way to remember triggers. And we talk about me messing up triggers in games, and that's going to happen. It does happen. But I want to work on solving that problem. It's one thing to miss triggers and then say to yourself, oh, I missed some triggers. I need to not miss those triggers. But that isn't going to solve the problem. If you could just say I'm not going to miss them, you wouldn't have missed them in the first place for the most part. You need to maybe change what you're doing to keep from making those mistakes again. So I need to work on ways to not miss those triggers versus like just accepting that I'm going to do that. One thing I see people do is, if they have a rebound card, they'll lean the card against their library or, put a die on top of their library or something along those lines. Max, you just like recently bought one of those electronic tablets for keeping track of your life total, right?
Yes, I have been keeping track of triggers on that.
That's what I was thinking. Like, do I want to pick one of those up and just use that to make a few notes? Like, mental note, you just put 2 cards with flashback in your graveyard, or mental note, whenever I play an Urza's Bauble that doesn't draw me a card till next turn, make a note on there that next player's turn so I can just briefly look down at that notepad every 30 seconds and see what I missed. So I need to work on finding some solutions to not miss those triggers versus just shrugging and going, well, I missed some triggers. I'll have to hope I don't miss them next turn. So be proactive in solving that problem. And there's a couple different things I can try, and I'm going to try a couple of them and see what works best for me.
That boogie board is a super interesting idea. Like, and then once you've like used it or whatever, you can cross it out, right? So you're like, that is really neat. I was gonna go with like a portable audio recorder, like from Twin Peaks, and be like, Diane, remind me to hit that blind obedience or whatever.
Nice job remembering it was Diane as well. Good job.
My wife
Ryan.
would be proud.
All right, what's your number 4 here, Ryan?
This is probably the hardest one, and there's a whole bunch of stuff here, so you guys feel free to jump in like after bullet points, because this is like the big one. But I want to play Commander more intentionally, right? And what this means is constantly, even when it's not your turn, paying attention to everything. And it's fortuitous that you just talked about missing triggers, because I know that missed triggers happen every single game I play, just about. And I think that is something that, like, if you can be like on the lookout for that and like, kind of pat yourself on the back when you see that somebody else missed a trigger, like there's something there, right? Like that's, it's kind of like a little reward, like, hey, I'm paying attention and I saw this and I got benefit this way. And another thing that I notice every time I play Commander, or most times, is like, somebody will say like, when did you play Blind Obedience? Or I didn't know you had Goblin Bombardment in play. Like, this happens all the time, and I think that it's because it's really hard to do this, right? Because one turn around the board, late in the game, takes like maybe 15, 20 minutes, and it's really hard to stay focused and pay attention that entire time. And not to mention, there's a ton of stuff in play too, which is really hard.
And there's a ton of distractions in a shop. There's somebody randomly coming up to you, asking if you have this card, or asking, if you put this new thing on your deck, or, whether you watched Witcher or Star Wars or whatever.
Nice.
There's just generally distractions in a shop when you're playing Commander 2.
Another distraction is in your pocket, and I'm guilty of this.
Whoa. Family show.
I'm talking about my phone.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's real easy to like get on Twitter, right? Or like, you get a text message and you're like, okay, look, okay, it's not my wife. All right, cool. Like, don't get to it. Use that time, right? Like, enjoy yourself too. Be present, because that's another thing. Like, you can play a game and it's really tempting, especially when you're behind, to kind of like mentally check out of a game. And that's something I want to get better at, right? Like, just really trying to figure stuff out. And I think another thing is like just remembering what everybody has in play. And again, that boogie board idea, Max, might be useful here. It's like not everybody can remember everything. It's like, well, did they leave open 5 mana for Oblivion Stone? Wait, is it 5 or is it 4? Right? Like, it's 5, but like, make sure you know that, right? Like, if you're not sure, like, reread the card.
Right.
When somebody else is doing like fetching stuff in their library, like, think about what you're going to do on your following turn. And another one that I think this really helps with here is, I in the show notes, I call it the empathy hat, which is if you're paying more attention to the game and you're seeing like, oh, there's like a slight feud between player B and C, so they're likely to attack them with that, giant 32 creature, right? See, that kind of benefit really, really pays off, right? Like, if you can like kind of like think about what other people are going to do and like have like a pretty good like 70 to 80% likelihood of like knowing, you can act on that information. And that's information that you wouldn't have if you weren't paying attention.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Is there anything else under this subheading you want to talk about?
Well, sure. Okay, so I think one thing to do is like notice what other people are doing during other people's turns too. So like if somebody just is consistently leaving up mana, like maybe they have a counterspell, right? Or maybe they have Mortify or something. Like that's the kind of stuff that you don't notice if you're only paying attention to your own board state. And I think this is another thing that's really hard for newer players. I mean, it's hard for me, so it has to be hard for newer players, right?
Right.
But I think that if I can do this, if I can be more vigilant and more attentive, I think that it's going to allow me to, succeed more in, the new year.
That blue player didn't leave 7 blue mana up because they're bad at Magic.
That's assuming a lot right there.
They probably have a rift and are just making sure they're not just going to let that mana go to waste.
Just going to capsize buyback it a few times.
I mean, well, whatever. They're going to do something that you don't want them to do, and it's good. It's good to be aware that that's happening. And like you said, as a new player, that's the kind of like information hidden with information that's really easy to miss. And it's really easy to miss if you're just on your phone or not paying attention, because it's almost like negative space. It's information. It's the lack of information almost. They didn't do this thing, so what does that mean that they didn't do it?
Yeah, I sometimes call it like traffic analysis. Like, I'm just like paying attention to the other stuff that's happening around me.
You bet. And I think you have one more bullet point here in this category.
Oh, you know what? Okay, yeah, I could jump in here. So I think the other bit is think about how you're going to win the game. And like this maybe sounds obvious, but I think that a lot of people are playing kind of in the moment. And if you are watching what's happening around you during other people's turns and you're really invested and you're really paying attention, you can go, okay, wait a minute. So Max is likely to board wipe, unless he's playing the Dana Gambit and he's trying to just make Dana not play creatures. Right. But so if Max does board wipe, then I can go, maybe the card I draw off my Solemn Simulacrum dying could allow me to tutor up. You kind of like visualize all these scenarios in front of you, and yeah, they don't always happen, but I'm telling you that like if you could just like find that through line or that line of play, and it only happens if you're thinking about it while other people are playing. Like that's when you figure it out. Like when it's your turn, you don't have time to think about that stuff. You're like, oh, I have to do this, and then somebody responds, and you're like, oh wait, what's going to happen after that? And it's really hard to like. Or rather, it's really easy to like lose the thread when that stuff starts happening because you're not taking into account what the other people are going to do. So spend that time wisely, I think is really what I'm saying.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Because you might as well do something productive with the time that you're allotted, right? And that's... I just was talking about losing the thread. I just lost the thread of what I was going to say.
Perfect example, right? I mean, that definitely happens, right? It's like it's life imitating art, or art imitating life, whichever one it is.
Yes. All right, Max. What's your number 4 here?
My number 4 is I want to play with more people. So it's really easy for me to walk into the shop every week and sit down in a pod with you, Dana, Chris, Dr. Mike. Right. And then 4 hours go by, and then it's like, oh, I've only played with you guys all night long. And, there's pluses to that. You get to hang out with your friends, get to talk about how your week's been, whatever. But in the big picture, you start to kind of build a sub-meta within your own meta because you've only played with these 3 other people for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So you maybe build to combat against them, and that's not the smartest thing to do, if you go to other events besides your LGS.
Or that these 4 players aren't playing Blood Moon. Or that, this person tends to not run many counterspells. And when you're playing in a real small sub-meta like that, it absolutely lets you be lazy.
Yes.
There's a side benefit here.
What do you think of that
There's
one,
a side
Ryan?
benefit too, which is like getting to play with other people, right? Like that's what's great about Magic, right?
Yeah.
I love that. And you know what? I think that we do see this. Like we have a league. We usually play like with the pre-constructed decks, the commander decks whenever they come out, and like people do this, right? Like, oh, there's another flashback deck in the meta. I'm going to put Catalyst Stone in my deck. And if you don't know what that does, it's a 2-mana artifact that says your flashback spells cost 2 less to flashback, and your opponent's flashback spells cost 2 more to cast. And you're like, oh, I can put that in there, right? So that is a phenomenon that happens. Like when you're playing against the same people,
right?
Like, and in our league, like you can only play against those people, and so that stuff definitely happens. And maybe it's even happening subconsciously if you're playing with the same people over and over again. So I think this is a really good one, Max.
Well, thank you.
Well, my number 5 here, Max, is actually similar to that. It's going to be that I want to listen to a new crop of podcasts. This is also kind of a little bit tied in with Ryan's number 1, but I primarily listen to the same shows every week. I listen to Command Zone usually. I listen to Commander Social. I listen to CCO, Legendary Creature sometimes, Elder Dragon Statesman sometimes, Brainstorm Brewery, Magic Mike's. That is a good variety of shows, but that's pretty much like the ones I do listen to. And there are other Commander shows out there, and like we talked about, playing with different people, it's good to get that fresh point of view. And I think that's one of the things I want to work on doing in this new calendar year. I'll set a goal for myself in January. Every week, I want to listen to at least one Commander-related podcast or YouTube channel or something that I haven't listened to before. So I want to listen to 4 brand new things through the month of January that I haven't listened to before. Number 1, it's useful to meet new people in the community and hear what they have to say. But like from a personal perspective, it's useful to just hear new points of view. So that's one of the things I'm going to try to do is hear 4 new points of view in January on Commander.
Okay, I think that's such a good idea, Dana. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually read ahead in the show notes because I wanted to be able to respond. Please share this with me. I want to do this too. I think this is an amazingly good idea. And, like I said, I need to make more time for this too. So, and we can help each other out. We can point each other to like good content. So, I'm blown away. I think that's fantastic.
I will share out which ones I listen to, and I'll make sure I link you in on that, Ryan, so you can give those ones a listen as well. For sure. All right. What is your number 5, Ryan?
Okay, so if we're going back to the whole workout regimen and routine, this is the cool down, right? You've done all the hard work. You've played intentionally. You've upped your limited game. You're keeping up with all the stuff that's coming out. Now it's time to have a little bit of fun, and it's the Scryfall random card game. And this is a thing that I do sometimes, and maybe I'm weird. I don't know. Well, I'm definitely weird. But basically, you can go out to Scryfall, which, by the way, listeners out there, if you have not tried Scryfall, it is fantastic. You can go out there and you can just hit the random card button, and it just pops up a new card, right? And this will help you like work on that card reading and understanding ability, which I think is super, super important. And I think a lot of people neglect it. I think that, you just like read real fast and you don't necessarily like completely understand what the card's going to do. And the more cards you read, the easier it is going to be able to do that. And you can do it like 10 times in like 5 minutes. It really does not take that long. And if you're not like a veteran, or if you have like a big missing gap in your history, like I do, I have like an 8-year span where I wasn't really playing much Magic. You're going to find stuff in there that you didn't know about. Or, you can go listen to Cad Popcast and listen to like the old set reviews that Ryan does, which are great.
Right.
But today I did this, right? And I found out that a Masters 25 Rashaden Port is only $7. And it's maybe not super great in Commander, but I remember that card being a house in Standard, and there's probably some niche applications for it in Commander as well. And that card used to be really, really expensive. So, like, not only did I, like, up my game of reading cards, but I, like, found out some financial knowledge too. And I think it's a fun thing to do.
Oh, for sure. And the financial part isn't negligible either. Like, I don't know that card's ever going to go back to the $70 it was at, 5 years ago. I highly doubt it ever will. But $7, there's not much downside to picking one up at $7 either, just for the off chance you might play it. And that could very easily be a $12 or $15 card in a year or something, just because there's probably not a lot of reprint venues out there for it, and it is a really solid card.
The other thing is the Mercadian Masks edition is like $33. So like there's a pretty big disparity there, which means either that one's way too expensive or the Master 25 one is too cheap.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to do this, but I use EDH Rack. I use their random Commander button mainly when I'm trying to find something new to build, but it's similar theory. You get to find cards maybe you've never seen before.
Yeah, it's just one more way talking about seeing fresh cards and getting a fresh point of view, which is one way to do that.
The cool thing if you do the EDH rec one and get a random actual commander, because you can control and like actually get a card that could be your commander, you could spend a couple of minutes going like, what are some off the wall strategies I could do with this commander? And it kind of like forces you to think like outside the box. And I know that's like cliche or whatever, but I think there is benefit there, right? Like if you just go, oh well, what's this random commander that pops up that's like, there's only like 20 decks on EDH rec or something. Like if you think about that, that's going to just increase your overall like perspective on the game, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's one of the most useful things I think you can do for sure. Well, when we had Charlotte Sable on here a couple weeks back too, that was one of the things Max and I kind of wanted to talk to her about was, as someone who plays in Finland and is a judge and plays with really, really smart people, that was really nice to kind of get her point of view on things like cards that I'm not normally going to play, or maybe not see as someone in America that she might see in Finland, and see cards being played with people that are really, really smart players that I might not get a chance to see. So it's kind of the same thing. Like any way I think you can get a fresh perspective, whether it's listening to podcasts or the random card generator or talking to somebody who plays in a foreign country, I think that's a really, really useful, healthy thing to do. Max, what's your number 5?
So this one I'm slightly taking from, I think I've heard Ryan and Zach talk about it on Commander Social. I've heard your co-hosts Matt and Joey talk about it on EDH Rec, and that's I'm going to start getting opponents' feedback on my decks. Was certain cards too good or not so good, just to get other people's opinions, because it diversifies your knowledge base. If you're only used to getting feedback from the 6 people in your shop, well, ask that stranger you just met at Command Fest Chicago or Magic Fest Austin, because they might have a totally different idea of a card you should be running in that deck instead of card XYZ.
Well, and they might also have a good suggestion, something that you take for granted as being not a huge threat, or maybe that you assume is a huge threat because of the meta you're in, winds up not being scary or being extra scary for them. And it's good to hear that fresh point of view about something that maybe because of a meta difference, they've got an interesting perspective on it that you're just not used to.
So can I take the role of Chris here and just say, like, if Max came up and asked me about a card, I'd just be like, that's a trash card.
Just trash,
That's
Max.
exactly correct. Yep.
You're filled in for him admirably. All right. So those are our 5 workout things we're all hoping to improve on this year. And maybe Ryan, we'll have you back next year if you'd be willing.
Anytime. I love this. This is so much fun.
We can look back. Yeah, I think this would be useful thing to look back on too and see like if we had any success with doing these things and how well it worked out for us trying to improve even just a little bit.
Oh man, now I actually have to do it. Oh, rough.
Right. Right.
Maybe I should just go to the gym.
Right. One of the few who actually goes to the gym after you get your membership. Okay, well, Ryan, if people want to reach out to you or listen to your show, how would they find you online, or when does your show come out?
All right. Okay. So our video episodes come out every Tuesday, and our audio comes out every Wednesday. And if you're looking for the podcast version, the audio, it's everywhere you can find a podcast, right? It's in Apple, it's in iTunes, it's in everywhere. I use Overcast. It's there. And if you want to see our videos, they're on youtube.com/commandersocial. And you can hit me up at Green Geek on Twitter. And also, if you want to hit up my co-host, Zach, he's at C4CK. 38, pause intentional.
That's correct.
And you can find us at commandersocial.com as well. Oh, and together at commandersocial on Twitter. Yay, I did the things.
Excellent. Nice job. Ryan, thank you very much for filling in.
Yes.
You were a delight. We really appreciated it.
Thank you,
man.
Ryan.
Please. Thank you so much. This was so wonderful. Anytime. I love it. It's great.
Thanks, man. All right, our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Ken Peddle. You can find him on the Twitter birds at LOAD3R. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMBR_Max. And you can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. We'll be back on Thursday with another Deck Tech. Until then, I am Dana.
And I'm Max.
And I'm Ryan.